Are you ready? All right, so let's do week 8, card 1, and we're talking about Hitler's Youth. And if you remember from Mein Kampf, throw that up, he said, that was his book, My Struggle. My struggle, oh, woe is me, my struggle. In his book, Mein Kampf, he said that the way to get to the people is by convincing them that what you're doing for their children is for the best of their children. He said that people will give up their liberties, they'll give up their rights if you just say it's for their children. And so he started Hitler Youth. And remember, Hitler Youth was started in about the ages of 8 or 10, and it was mandatory for all boys. Well, not all boys. Jewish boys were not allowed to go. Also, boys with special needs were not allowed to go, and some other boys were not allowed to attend as well. But the vast majority of German boys had to go to Hitler Youth. So everyone got a rank in Hitler Youth. So it was something that they did after school almost every day, and they stayed until it was right about dinner time every single day, and they did the most fun stuff on the planet. They went camping, they did campfires, they did sports, they did fun stuff, they sang with each other, so it was wonderful and great, right, Anna?
But it really wasn't.
No, not really. It was manipulating them. And so how was it manipulating him is the question. How was it manipulating the kids? Well, what it was doing, it was teaching them that they were the best, that blonde-haired, blue-eyed people who were called Aryans were the chosen race, that Germany was going to conquer the world and it was going to usher in this 1,000 years of glory for the whole world with these blonde-haired, blue-eyed people running in, and it was going to be perfect, and that they could never be defeated. And it also convinced all of these kids that their parents were mistaken in World War I, that they were wimpy, that they didn't stick it out long enough, and if they'd stuck in it out long enough, then the whole Treaty of Versailles would have never happened, and there wouldn't be the Weimar Republic, and there wouldn't be inflation, and all of the bad things that happened wouldn't have happened if their parents had just persevered and tried harder and not been foolish. So does God tell us to go against our parents?
No.
No. In fact, that's a commandment to honor our mother and father, not to go against them. And so Hitler Youth was sneakily telling kids to do that. Hitler Youth was constantly telling children, and all through the ranks, all the way up until they were adult, that Jewish people were really bad, that Jewish people were thieves and dishonest and things that are just, you cannot say that about any group of people, and it was just wrong. They were teaching the students to be extremely racist about people who were Jewish, and in fact to have like a callousness to them, so that when things happened to them in the future, they didn't even care, because they'd been taught that for years and years and years in Hitler Youth. And then finally they taught students that to believe in God meant that they were weak, and that's a bad thing. They would be mocked for that. And so you had this entire generation of almost every single German boy and most German girls being taught these things over and over and over again every day. And if they tried to get out of it, if they tried to say, this just doesn't seem right, then they would be persecuted themselves. They would be hounded by the other kids. They could be beaten up for it. And so it was best for them, in their minds, to just go along with it, hoping that it would get better. But what happened was the people didn't get better. They became even more involved with this. So when World War II came and they started persecuting the Jewish people, all these people either turned a blind eye to it and allowed it to happen, or they went along with it, which was despicable. And they'd been trained to do that from a young age. At Hitler Youth, they were trained to tell on their parents if their parents believed in God, or if their parents were going against Hitler in some way. The kids would tell on their parents, and their parents would get in big trouble for it. Or the kids would tell on their neighbors, and the kids might get a merit badge for telling on their neighbors. So the kid would feel good, right? And the neighbor would get in trouble, and sometimes the neighbor hadn't done anything more than just pray. Or the neighbor had just said, well, I don't agree with what Hitler's doing, or spoken out with the truth. And they could have gotten in real trouble for that, because there were so many kids around willing to tell on them. So Hitler Youth was a very dangerous program that basically brainwashed the children of Germany to go along with something that was absolutely evil. So for your timeline, or for your link, it's in the back. What could we link Hitler Youth to?
His book.
His book, absolutely. Mein Kampf. We could link it to his book. What else could we link it to?
World War
I. Pridefulness, definitely pridefulness. How about trying to I can't think of the word. Trying to brainwash the children.
It's the opposite of our verse.
It's the opposite of our verse. That's really a good point. And I watched several videos, and I talked to a couple of Germans about this, and they said that they still feel like they had been robbed of their childhood, and that they had been, even though Hitler Youth was so much fun, they still feel very manipulated by what happened. They still feel like they had just been tools of this system, and that their childhood had been robbed from them. So it's really important to remember that, and it's also important to remember that even if everyone around you is saying, oh, this is okay, or to do this, or something like that, and you know that it's wrong, we should abhor evil and not do it, right? And to be genuine in our love and to do what is good. All right, so let's go on to our next card.